Good morning, students. Now, welcome back to English class. Today, we will go for one of the most beautiful poems of your second year, that is television, written by Roald Dahl. Let me share my screen. Yeah. The poem is written by Roald Dahl. Before going into the poem, let us go for the details of the poet. Roald Dahl lived between 1916 to 1990. Roald Dahl is a British novelist, a short story writer, and a screenwriter. And he is considered as one of the greatest storytellers for children of the 20th century. Most of his works deals with fantasy, grotesque, and comic, which children liked it very much. So the great works of him are Charlie and Chocolate Factory, written in the year 1964, the BFG in the year 1982, Matilda in the year 1988, and for all his great work, he was awarded the Millennium Children's Book Award in the year 2000 and World Fantasy Award for Life Achievement in the year 1983. So the Roald Dahl is famous for all his works and which attracted students very much. Now today, the topic is the television. Then the television. So as you all aware that children are very much addicted to the television. Addiction in any form is not see encourageable. So students most of the time, and especially children, most of the time they watch television. They go through all kinds of the programs in the television. They forget their time, and the poet wants the parents as well as the students that if you are addicted to the television, naturally the creative imagination of you will be lost. Moreover, you will become like a machine. So he, in fact, went to the extent that don't install this idiotic thing at all. So a kind of aversion is seen in his poetry towards the television and all. So let us go deep into it. And the main purpose of the poem is how young children are attracted to television and what kind of see impact it has on them and how their creative imagination is killed and what is the advice given to the parents instead of see having the television at home. So these are the major things in the poem. So when you look at the poem is the poem is very long, but the language is very simple, easy to understand. It was written in iambic say tetrameter. There are no stanza division at all. This is the form of the poem. So what he said is the most important thing we have learned as far as children are concerned is never let them near your television set. Or better still, just don't install the idiotic thing at all. The opening lines itself is said the most important things we have learned during our time is that do not let young children to the say television set at all. That means as far as children are concerned, is never let them near your television set. He is asking and advising that not to let the children near the television set. He used the word never and never in capitals. That means not at all. So with a lot of anguish, he says, let us not see allow the young children go near to the televisions at all. And he went to the extent that not to install this idiotic thing at all. The idiotic thing is the television here, according to the poet. right? So when you look at these lines, you will find out that the poet is very much advocating that not to let the young children near the television set, and further he goes to the extent in suggesting the parents that don't install at all this idiotic thing that is television in the home at all. So when the poet talks about the see removing the television set from the home or not at all installing at home, so why he says so? Then he observed that in almost every house we have been, we have watched them gaping at the screen. They lull and lop and lounge about and stare until their eyes pop out. Last week in someone's place, we saw a dozen eyeballs on the floor. So in almost every house, it is not the case with one, but every house, in every house, the situation is the same. In almost every house we have visited, we have watched them gaping at the screen. We have watched the young children looking at the screen. It's not just looking, but they were gaping at the screen. They were looking, fixedly. That is, they are staring at the screen. They lull and slap and lounge about and stare until their eyes pop out. They were so much addicted that they were lolling and slop and lounge on the floors and the sofa sets and the beds, and they started looking at the screen, and they were staring, and until how long they stare until their eyes pop out. Pop out means coming out. That means because of excessive watching of the television, as if the eyes comes from its own place, comes forward from its own place. It looks like that. That means the excessive watching of the television, being addicted to the television watching, the children eyes seems like that. So either by sitting, lounging on the sofa or on the bed, and on the slope and all, they were looking at the screen, right, without taking away their eyes from the television box. So last week in someone's place, we saw a dozen eyeballs on the floor. He commented that he visited someone's house, and he saw six people sitting on the floor watching the television as if a dozen eyeballs on the floor. So sarcastically, he said that everywhere people are addicted, the young children more specifically are addicted to that television watching, and they look at the screen and see that is the addiction he has observed. So they sit and stare and sit. What they do? They sit and look at the television fixedly and stare and sit. They don't do any other thing. They look at staring and staring and staring and staring. What they do? They sit. That's all. So they never get up from their beds or from their sofa sets, or they move here and there, but they sit and stare, and they stare and sit. That's all. So until they were hypnotized by it, until they are absolutely drunk with all that shocking, ghastly junk. They sit and stare until they are hypnotized by it. It seems that they are hypnotized by the television. So what is hypnotism? As we all aware that whatever the master says, he simply follows. He or she simply follows. So they were in the hands of the person who hypnotizes us. Similarly, if the thing here, the hypnotizing thing here is the television, and he said the young children are being hypnotized by it. It here is the television, so they are hypnotized by them. That means looking at the television, staring and staring for a very longer time, and they almost lost their control, and so they are in the hands of the television until they are absolutely drunk with all that shocking, ghastly junk. So how long they look at the television? Until they are absolutely drunk. Absolutely means completely drunk. What they are drinking? They are drinking with all that shocking, ghastly junk. They are drinking only the junk, and it is so shockingly. That means what they observe in the television is not all fine things. So they may be seeing unpleasant things, or shocking things, or most horrible things, or intoxicating things they will be watching on the television. So all this ghastly junk, and with shockingly they were drinking as if they are absolutely drinking that ghastly junk which comes from the television set, and it seems they are hypnotized by it. So that's why the students, the young children stare and stare, see, and lounging in their on the sofas and all that. They never give a little break in watching the television. So they were very much addicted to it. So see, this has a very serious consequence on their health, and as well as their mental health too, physical and mental health too. So he said, "Oh yes, we know it keeps them still. They don't climb out the window sill. They never fight or kick or punch. They leave you free to cook the lunch and wash the dishes in the sink." That means, so when the parents were asked, the parents will say, "Oh yes, we know it keeps them still." Because when the parents are engaged in their work, more specifically the mothers, when they are working in the kitchen or doing engaged in some other work, so children often come and disturb them. But once the children are watching the television, so they get hypnotized there and they never disturb the works of the parents. So parents knew this. So he said, "We knew it keeps them still, or they don't climb out the window sill." That not only that, when they are given freedom without watching television, what they do? Normally, they climb, they fight, they kick, they punch, they climb on the window, whatnot. Everything as young children, what they do. They don't climb out the window sill. They never fight or kick or punch. They leave you free to cook the lunch and wash the dishes in the sink. So, in a way, the young children watching television sit quietly without disturbing the work of the mother, or else without fighting one another, or else without doing the nonsense things like climbing and hanging to the windows and all that, isn't it? So young children are supposed to do that, but in fact, when they were when they sat before the television and they were involved in getting what is given in the television, without applying their mind, without applying their consciousness and all that. So they never fight or kick or punch. They leave you free to cook the lunch and wash the dishes in the sink. But did you ever stop to think, to wonder just exactly what this does to your beloved daughter? Then the poet asked the parents, "Okay, this is all fine because you will be doing your job well. The student, the young children don't fight one another. They never engage in all this a task like kicking and punching, fighting one another. When there are siblings, normally they fight with one another. All these you can get away from." But at the same time, I will ask you a question. But did you ever stop to think, to wonder just exactly what this does to your beloved thought? So, what this definitely is going to affect, how this is going to affect your young children at all? Did you ever think about it? So, you ask a question. So, to wonder just exactly what this does to your beloved. Did you ever wonder that? Did you ever give a serious thought about it? What exactly that is going to give the result when when the children are totally engaged in watching the television all through the day? So then he said, then I gives in the capital letter. That means every word here is important. All this message is very important. Then he said, it rots the sense in the head. It here is television. When the young children watches their television for a very long time, what will happen? It rots the sense in the head. So the sense of the sense of the human being is lost. So it see rots the sense in the head. It kills imagination instead. As you all aware that young children are having see great imagination. Say they imagine everything. See, they will be in the fantasy. So all the time they are engaged in imaginative activities. So what happened? This imagination is killed as they are sitting before the television set for a longer time. They have nothing to do. They never apply their mind. What they do is just they take on whatever comes in the television set. All that ghastly junk they will be receiving all the time. All that emotions they will be undergoing. Their imagination is totally blocked. So once they are habituated to this for a very longer time, their imagination gets affected. It clogs and clutters up the mind. Not only it then is the sense and imagination is stopped, but also it clutters and clogs in the mind because they all see that ghastly junk. That means various kind of emotions, various kinds of images they see. They may also see the reality, they may also see the fantasy. They are unable to understand what is reality and what is fantasy, and different varieties of things will come to them. So whatever they see something is right, opposite to that some version will be given in one of the shows in the television. So they were in confusion what to do. See whether their flow of thought will not be same, and these different thoughts, different opinions will interfere in them. Different kinds of images, different kinds of opinions, different kinds of information will see stop the free flow of their mind. That means their imagination and their own thinking process will get affected, as if see the what you call the waste material clogs, see what you call a candle. So like that, you the free flow of imagination, free flow of thinking will get affected because of the junk that they have received from the television set. That's why he said it clogs and clutters of the mind. It makes a child so dull and blind. It makes so dull and blind because all the time they will not be doing any physical activity watching the television, isn't it? So they become dull, and at the same time they become blind. Too much of watching the television for hours together will definitely affect the student's eyesight, and moreover they become so dull because there is no physical activity at all. So they will be receiving passively, but they are not actively engaged into it. So when they are not actively engaged into it and they are watching for a very longer time, they become so dull and they become blind also. And he can no longer understand a fantasy and a fairy land. So whatever is seen in the television is either it may be fantasy or it may be the reality or it may be a fairy land, and they are no longer in a position to understand or the differentiate between what is fantasy and what is the reality. So they get lost the distinction between these two, and his brain becomes as soft as cheese. Funnily said, his brain becomes as soft as cheese. That means watching television for a very longer time even melts his brain. That means his brain also becomes like a cheese. His powers of thinking rust and freeze. So the children are bestowed with great creative powers, and all that great creative powers of thinking will get rust because they are not applying them, they are not using them, and they won't work freely. That's why they get freezed. So either they get rust because of not using them, and they get freezed. So, like that, all creative powers of the young children get rust, and they never put into action. That's the reason why they become useless. That's why he uses the term freeze. He cannot think, he only sees. That means he is habituated to watching the television. That's all. He cannot think on his own. So there will not be any thinking process. So he just accepts whatever comes in the screen. So whatever comes in the screen he accepts, but his thinking process is totally stopped. So that's why the poet said these many disadvantages are there. Their sense is dead, their creative imagination is dead, and several things will be blocking their free flow of thinking. They become so dull and blind, and they no longer understand the difference between a fairyland and also the reality. And his brain becomes as soft as a cheese, and because they all their creative thinking parts will get rust and freeze because they are not given a chance to say express or to improve them. And he cannot see, he only sees. That means he can only see but nothing goes inside and get see analyzed in the mind at all. So these many difficulty disadvantages are there with the television set. That's the reason why the poet said don't install the television set at all. He considered it as an idiotic thing. Then the parents may him a question. All right, you will cry. Here, you is parents. All right, you will cry. All right, you will say. But if we take the set away, then parent can understand what harm that this television set does to you, the young children. They can understand it, but they also say, all right, whatever you said is right. We too know the disadvantage of the television set. But if we take the set away, what shall we do to entertain our darling children? Please explain. Because the parents are also in a confused state. If we remove the television set, so to entertain our young children, the darling children, what to do? There is no other alternative for them to say engage the children at home in some another activity. Please explain. So they were they have almost forgotten, and they were almost in a position that they don't find any alternative removing the television set. What to do? Then we will answer you this by asking you, what use the darling wants to do? How used they keep themselves contented before this monster was invented. Have you forgotten or don't you know? So he said, before this monster, here monster is the television. So before this monster has come into the world, has been invented. So what our young children used to do? Did you forget them or did you know? Don't you know? So he said he asked a question. Either you might not have known the alternative, or else you might not have you might have forgotten it. So that's why he asked the question. Then see what use the darling wants to do, how use they keep themselves contented before this monster was invented. So the author went to the extent of calling the television as a monster because it has a great influencing power on the young children, and it is killing the imaginative power of them, it is killing their eyesight. Not only that, it is killing the young. See the golden, see beautiful, see childhood days of the youngsters. So that's why he considered the television set as a monster. And since the parents are in a confusion, what to do when they remove the television? When even though they know that the disadvantage of the television set, so they are asking whether what should be say taken as an alternative for their young children to entertain. So then the poet asked that did they have forgotten or see don't they know? So what he said is before this monster has come into the world, how they had their childhood days. So he asked them to remember. Then we'll say it very loud and slow. What they used to do, that means during their early days, before this monster has come into the world, they used to read. They have read and read and read and read and then proceed to read some more. That means there was no other alternative than reading. So the young children used to read so many books, and they were engaged in reading. They were engaged in reading so much so that they are read and read and read and read. So that means he has repeatedly used the word. There is no other alternative, but they're really enjoying reading the books, different kinds of books they read, and then proceed to read some more. But they are not happy with the reading of some books, not only the textbooks, but other interesting books and all, and then proceed to read some more. That means their thirst for see knowledge did not end there. So they went on reading and adding more and more knowledge, and they took the pleasure in reading, unlike see watching the television and all that. So the young children were engaged in the olden days, reading more and more, and they get the pleasure out of it. They used to enhance their knowledge, and thirst for their thirst for knowledge did not end there. So it was continuous. They are happily involved in it, and then proceed to read some more. So that then proceed to read some more means they are happy with that, and they continue that journey. Great Scott, gadgets. These are the see, exclamatory things which are taken from the books that they have read, the great exclamations that they are making. One of their lives was reading books. The nursery shelves held books galore. Almost half of their living they used to read books. That means half of the time in their life they spent on reading the books and acquiring the knowledge, and they took pleasure in it, much more pleasure than your television. See in reading the books. The nursery shelves held books galore, books cluttered up the nursery floor and in the bedroom. By the bed, more books were waiting to be read. So the books were everywhere. The nursery shelves are having, see, quite good number of books, held books gallery, books cluttered up the nursery floor. Wherever you see, you will see the books in clutters. And then on the nursery floor, in the bedroom, by the side of the bed, so there were more books still waiting to be read. That means everywhere they are in the see world of the books. That means books were see all the time see a kind of encouragement for them, an alluring thing for them. So they used to read and read many and many books. So the young children were see busy in say reading the books, nursery reading see various kinds of books. So everywhere you will find the books at the nursery floor, bedroom, by the side of the bed, and more books were there to be read. So this is how they spent their young age. They took a lot of interest in reading books. They enjoyed it very much. They still wanted to read more and more books. So he compared the watching of the television with the reading of the books. The young children, they get see immersed in watching the television. They take all that junk. But here, in the olden days, the young children engaged in reading books and reading books. Here also, they read the books with a lot of interest, and they took enthusiasm in reading them. They enjoyed them. They still wanted to read more and more books. That means no way if you compare watching of the television is most alluring. We can't say that the same thing has happened is not happening with the reading of the books. Here also, young children were very much interested in reading different kinds of books, and they enjoyed it. They still wanted to read more and more books. So the enthusiasm at watching the television and reading the books will be the same, and much more in reading the books when you compare with the television, because here the young children are actively engaged, and with all that happiness they are still ready to read more and more. So, what kind of things salute them? Such wondrous, fine, fantastic tales of dragons, gypsies, queens, and whales, and treasure isles and distant shores where smugglers rowed with muffled oars, and pirates wearing purple pants, and sailing ships and elephants, and cannibals crouching round the pot, staring away at something hot. When you go through the children books, lot of fantasy is there, lot of things were there. See, they come from the cultural background, they come from the very regional background. they talk about the merchandise, they talk about the kings, queens, islands, distant shores, talking about the smugglers, talking about the sailing ships, the elephants, the cannibals, whatnot. They are exposed to the see a very fantastic world, see exposed to different kinds of things, such wondrous things they have come across. They were fine, fantastic tales were there. They see had tales about the dragons, the gypsies, queens and whales and treasure islands, the hunting into the treasure islands and the distant shores where smugglers rode with muffled oars, and pirates were purple, wearing purple pants. See, pirates are the people see who comes on ship to rob the things. So those kinds of stories are also were very funny, and at the same time they were very much interesting. And the sailing ships and elephants sailing ships to the distant lands, knowing new lands, and about the elephants, the cannibals, looking at the people how they live. Here are the stories about the cannibals crouching around the pot, so they are making some dish right round the pot, staring away at something hot. That means all such beautiful things they have come across, they are engrossed in it. They are not only entertaining, but they are also educative. They will be knowing to the real world around them, and moreover, in a, see, they also enjoy the fantasy in them. So that's how the young children's imagination grew, their reading abilities went up. At the same time, their imagination is also nursed very well. So they developed their creative imagination. They also knew the difference between the fantasy and the reality. They enjoyed their reading the books. All these things happened earlier, unlike the present watching television. Then what? So he said dot dot dot. That means there are some lines see were deleted in this abridged version. So then he said, "Oh books, what books they used to know, those children living long ago. So please, we beg, we pray, go through your TV set away, and in its place you can install a lovely bookshelf on the wall." Oh, books, what kind of books that the young children of the olden days enjoyed, or as parents, you also knew how you spent your time and what kinds of books that you liked very much. Oh, books, what books they used to know, those children living long ago. So, what kind of books that they have read, and what kind of books are necessary right now also. So, please, oh, please, we beg, we pray, so that kinds of books are very, very essential, because that made us the right citizens, that made us to live, know the difference between the reality and fantasy, and we have creative imagination, how we should live. There are so many morals in the stories and all that. So with all that, our own young children should also grow like that. They should be virtuous, they should gain wisdom, they should enjoy, at the same time they should know the difference between fantasy and also the reality. So because as parents we all have experience of see going through these books, what way they have helped us in growing ourselves as a better individual. Similarly, our young children should grow like that. So books are really worthy, and reading books is a good habit instead of watching the television. So he said, so cultivate this habit, and then he said he begged. So please, oh please, we beg, we pray. So he is ardently appealing the parents about this. So please, oh please, we beg, we pray. So in spite of knowing the disadvantages of the television, most of the parents, they never take any efforts in finding the alternative methods. So whatever easy for them they are doing, but instead leaving the children to the television is not good. Parents knew the disadvantages of them, but they never find the alternative, they never search for the alternative, even they never gave a serious thought about it. So it has become the custom of the day. That's why They never gave a serious thought. But if you are really concerned about your children, young children, see, please take care and understand what, see, remember what kind of good things that you had when you were a child. So how you grew reading the books and what benefits it has brought, all that you know. So he is appealing the parents that, oh please, we beg, we pray. So he is begging and also he is praying the parents that go throw your TV set away. So what he said is, go and throw your TV set away immediately. First remove it. Once you remove it in the place of that, what will come little later. But you have to remove that TV set first. The first thing should be to remove the TV set, and in its place you can install a lovely bookshelf on the wall. So we have just come across what can be the alternative for watching the television, the place of TV set, what can be installed. He said, the poet advised that you can install a lovely bookshelf on the wall. So in the place of the TV set, you can install a lovely bookshelf. So he ardently appealed the parents that immediately remove the television set and install a bookshelf. That is the first thing that immediately they should do. Then what will happen? Then he said, then fill the shelves with lots of books, ignoring all the dirty looks. So you fill the bookshelves with lots of books, various kinds of books that has really influenced you, as you feel that they are really helpful to the young children in say, improving their imagination, in entertaining them. So in all that perspective, so put lot many books into the bookshelves, fill them, make them rich, so that the young children should get attracted to it, and ignoring all that dirty looks. When you are doing all these things, you can observe the dirty looks of your young children. They may be looking at you in such a way because they don't like this. See, removing television set itself is a great shock for them, and they don't like the books and bookshelf in the place, and they will be looking you in a such a way. So ignore. He asked the parents to ignore that dirty looks, the screams and yells, the bites and kicks, and children hitting you with sticks. The poet is very much conscious and said that, see, if you are removing the TV set, what will happen? Great things will happen in the house, because the children are not happy. You will see the conduct problems, the behavior problems. They scream and they yell, they shout at you, they see them, they scream, they bite, and even they go to the extent of kicking you, and children hitting you with sticks. See, all these things will take place because when the child is put in some kind of discomfort, like see, removing the television set like that, he cannot bear it, he cannot tolerate it, and out of frustration he may bite you, he may kick you, he may hit you with a stick, he may scream and he may yell, he may shout at you. But have patience, he may look in a dirty way, but in spite of all those things, have patience. Then see, keep a lot many interesting books in the bookshelves of these young children. Then again he said, fear not, because we promise you. Don't fear about that. See, whether our see alternative method is successful even in the present present situation, or in the present times. Don't worry, don't fear about it. Fear not, because we promise you that in about a week or two, so having nothing else to do, they will now begin to feel the need of having something to read. So maybe a week or two, they may be doing the same activities, shouting at you, kicking and biting you, or hitting with the sticks, and all that things may happen to the parents. But have patience, and after doing such things for a very longer time, like a week or two, then the children start realizing that the TV won't come in the house once again. And what is the alternative for them is he can see only the bookshelf on the wall So he sees that looking with hatred only, he looks at that with much hatred, but having nothing else to do, as he has no other alternative than reading the books. He just started see reading the books. They will now begin to feel the need of having something to read. So they feel that something should be read. So they see voluntarily or involuntarily they start their journey, but voluntarily once they get the taste, they go to the bookshelf, they take the books of their own interest, and they start reading and reading. So that way we can inculcate the habit of reading in the young children. And by inculcating this habit, there are the advantages, like we can improve their imagination, we can improve their creative faculty, we can give them the right messages, we can give them the wisdom, we can give them the knowledge, and that way we can also save from the disadvantages of the television set. And he said, and once they start, oh boy, you watch the slowly growing joy that fills their hearts. Once they start reading the book, then oh boy, you watch the slowly growing joy that fills their heart. So once they started using reading the books, they see they enjoy that, enjoy reading the books. So this growing joy fills their hearts. So that means their happiness is filled with filled their hearts. So that means reading has much pleasure than watching the television, because it has a scope for imagination, it has a scope for thinking. So the young children get see involved in using their creative faculties, in using their knowledge, in understanding them, in analyzing them, in imagining them. So that way they apply all their creative faculties, their own power of the mind. So that's why they get the pleasure in reading them. Once they started exercising this, they'll come to know that the reading is good, and the reading will definitely will help them. It may help them in see enhancing their knowledge. Not only that, they can also take the pleasure as they took from the television set. So here, when you observe the difference between the watching of the television and reading of the books, reading of the books has given will definitely give them much joy than watching the television. Whereas at watching television, the child is only a passive one, only the passive receptor, but whereas in reading books, he is actively engaged in it, and he is taking, he is analyzing, he is understanding, he is see at the same time applying his mind and knowledge. So that way he takes joy. So books are nowhere less than less entertaining than the television set. In fact, the books are rich in giving all kinds of exercises to your brain. So the young children will definitely take pleasure in reading books. So he assured the poet assured the parents that the children, once having nothing to do, see when the television set is replaced by the bookshelf, then they start reading one after the other, and they take some pleasure in reading the books, and their hearts are filled with growing joy. And when you compare the children to their previous life, then you will see the lot of difference. Earlier, when the children, after watching the television set for a very long time, were very dull and they are inactive, but now after reading the textbooks, they are very active and they are very happy also. So you will find a very considerable change. Adopting to a new habit of reading the textbook, reading the books. They will grow so keen, they will wonder what they had ever seen in that ridiculous machine. That means after they learned the beauty of reading the books, after they enjoyed reading books, they will wonder that what nonsense they have seen on the television, that ridiculous machine here is the television. So that ridiculous what they have seen in the ridiculous machine was inferior, was of no use, was see meaningless, and all that they will come to know once they are habituated in reading the books. So they may see that it is the nauseating, foul, unclean, repulsive television screen. They consider the television screen as nauseating, foul, unclean. So the moment when they want to watch the television, the idea of television, watching television, they get a nausea. And it seems that whatever is seen on the television is foul, unclean material, repulsive. That means they are very much repulsive in watching the television. That means they hate watching the television. And the moment when the watching television comes to their mind, they feel the nauseating feeling, and they consider whatever is shown in that television is unclean, foul, and all that. So they now realize what exactly is the television is causing them. So this many ill effects you can see avoid by replacing your television set with the bookshelf in the house. So that way here the author has given a wonderful suggestion to the parents. He makes them understand the disadvantages of the television set, and also shown an alternative of say replacing television set with the bookshelf. He also assured them that in the beginning the children may not like it, they may not say enjoy them, but at the end, having nothing to do, they slowly started reading, and also assured the parents that after reading they take lot of pleasure in reading, and once they get accustomed to the reading of the books and enjoying them, they will see that the television as a see ridiculous machine. And the moment when they get the idea of watching television, it gives a kind of nauseating feeling in them. They consider it as an unclean, foul machine, and they never revert back to the habit of watching the television for a very longer time. It becomes repulsive for them. And later, so the great advantages of it, of this habit, as a parent you have contributed them a lot. So you will be recognized for your good act. What is the good act here? Replacing the television with a bookshelf. In the beginning, the children hated it. They fought with you, they kicked you with a stick. See, they made see all kinds of things like yelling, crying, whatnot, screaming, everything they did. And it was a very horrible time for you to handle them or make them convince. But at the end, once the child is accustomed to reading and enjoying the books, what will happen? And later, when they are grown up and when they are habituated to reading and all that, each and every kid is assuring, not an exemption, but he is assuring that each and every kid, every small boy today or a small child today will definitely love you. That means love the parents more for what you did, more for what they did. What they did, the parents has replaced the television with a bookshelf. So for doing this activity, your children will love you very much. At a later stage they can understand what best thing that you did for them, and their love for you will definitely grow. So meanwhile, during the replacement of television with a bookshelf has really see bothered you, really found the see repel the negativity from your young children, but later he is assuring that each and every kid definitely will will be happy and will be thankful to you for what great thing that you have did, the great thing of replacing the television set with a bookshelf. So this is how said this, and later each and every kid will love you more for what you did. So ultimately, the poet advises Now the parents to remove the nauseating see television set immediately and replace with a bookshelf.